The Secret in the Wall. The shocking truth behind the triplets who vanished. 35 years ago. It all began 35 years ago on Broken Elm Street. 3 identical boys, playing and laughing in the shadow of a dying elm tree, suddenly fell silent and vanished. They left behind no tire marks, no broken fences, not even a single footprint in the soft soil. From that day on, their home was wrapped in silence. Neighbors moved away one by one, and the windows never lit up again. For years, no answer and no bodies were ever found, only a bitter memory sealed behind the walls. Until 35 years later, when a new family moved into that house, the lights began flickering on and off by themselves, and children's voices were heard in the attic. In early June, Ben and Laya Ramirez bought the abandoned house at the end of the street. Its shuttered windows and peeling paint gave the look of a weary face that hadn't spoken to anyone in years. While prying at a warped plywood board in the garage wall, Ben felt something strange. Behind the drywall, where it shouldn't have been, was a wooden frame, as if someone had deliberately sealed off part of the garage. When Laya joked, "Are you about to find hidden treasure or a raccoon family?" Ben forced a nervous smile, hopefully not the second one. With one last pull, the crowbar cracked through the drywall, revealing a hollow space. Among the dust swirling in the sunlight from the small garage window sat a wooden chest wedged between beams. Time had turned the wood gray and the iron hinges, rusty red. Written faintly in pencil across the lid was a child's name, Danny. Slowly, Ben lifted the lid. Inside, everything looked as though it were coated in ash. A toy fire truck missing its wheels, a tangle of yo-yos, a laminated school library card labeled in block letters Evan Cooper, and at the very bottom, a faded Polaroid photograph, Laya. Carefully picked up the fragile photo, as if it might crumble in her hands, and gasped, "Oh my God!" In the picture, 3 identical boys in red jackets smiled at the camera. Behind them stood the unmistakable house they were now inside, the porch still crooked. Laya quickly pulled out her phone and searched Broken Elm Street missing triplets. The results appeared instantly. A 1989 missing poster, Daniel, Evan, and Miles Cooper, age 7. Last seen riding their bikes home from school in Rosewood, County, Texas. When Ben walked over, Laya slowly shook her head. They disappeared from the street. They realized the missing triplets had lived right across the way, in the modest brick house with the creaking porch. They reported their discovery immediately. Soon, 2 police cars and a detective in an ill-fitted suit arrived. As officers bagged the items with gloved hands, one muttered, "This case is colder than the North Pole. Closed since '94. Not a single lead in 20 years. Detective Kwan logged the evidence and told them the file would be reopened, though they shouldn't expect miracles. But Laya had no intention of letting it rest. Who had hidden that chest and why? That night, she reread the missing poster over and over. She found a 1990 newspaper interview with the boy's mother, Elaine Cooper. She had never moved away. "I just want someone to remember their faces," the grieving woman had said. "They didn't just disappear. Someone made them disappear." The next morning, Laya gathered her courage and walked across the street. The door opened to reveal Elaine Cooper, older than in the photos, but with the same sharp, sorrowful eyes. "We just bought the house across the street," Laya began. "During renovations, we found a chest behind a wall in the garage." Elaine's face stayed blank until Laya pulled the Polaroid from her bag. Elaine's hands trembled as she took it. After a long silence, she whispered, "This was the day before they vanished. I had a copy, too. I thought it was lost." Laya mentioned that back then, the house had been owned by an old man named Vernon Hale. Elaine's eyes hardened. "He was never investigated. He had an alibi, and everyone respected him. But I always suspected. He had a dog, Brutus. My boys loved that dog. Even though I warned them not to talk to strangers, I sometimes saw them petting it." The suspicion burned brighter inside Laya. She dug into Vernon Hale's past. He had died of a stroke in 2002 and had no children. That night, as she examined the garage walls with a flashlight, she spotted a name scratched into the wood behind a baseboard. Evan. With this new evidence, Detective Nolan officially reopened the case and secured a search warrant. Nolan recalled a similar disappearance years earlier in another town, where a suspect's garage yielded a pair of children's shoes buried in concrete. Acting on that thought, officers broke the concrete slab at the back of the Ramirez garage. Beneath the soil lay a rusted red metal lunchbox wrapped in plastic. Inside were a pair of socks, a Pokemon sticker, and a folded note. "Please don't. Tell Mom I bought dog food." The note was signed by Evan. This discovery changed everything. Nolan brought in ground-penetrating radar to scan the property. Beneath the back corner of the garage foundation, at a depth of about 4 feet, they detected a strange void. Excavation took hours, until finally, 3 bundles wrapped in plastic emerged. But inside were not bodies. They were 3 small rusted children's bicycles, each tagged with names: Daniel, Evan, and Miles. Elaine collapsed to her knees as Laya held her. "They were here," Elaine whispered. Nolan stared in disbelief. They buried the bikes, but not the boys. Further digging revealed an unsettling fact. Vernon's wife's 1990 obituary mentioned a son, Matthew, who had died at age 3, though Vernon's supposed fatherhood had always been a secret. At the same time, Elaine noticed something haunting in an old photo. 2 weeks before the boys disappeared, a snapshot of them showed in the background Vernon's house, his dog Brutus, and the faint silhouette of a man in a pale shirt hiding behind a porch post. Meanwhile, Laya discovered that in Vernon's final 6 months, he'd been cared for by an unlicensed attendant named Ralph Mason. The breakthrough came when Nolan located an abandoned safety deposit box belonging to Mason. Inside were forged passports under different names, and a photograph. It showed 3 boys sitting with their backs to the camera. The date, July 18, 1990, 10 months after the disappearance. Elaine whispered, "I knew it. They were alive." The photo's watermark led investigators to a long, closed photo lab in Arizona. The former owner remembered Mason and how he often brought in pictures of children. Records revealed Mason had bought land outside town under a false name. At an abandoned trailer on that land, they found a shoebox filled with dozens of photos, all of boys, their backs turned. Elaine recognized the shoulders. Beneath the floorboards of the back room, they uncovered a locked metal box. Inside were 2 of Mason's journals and 3 tiny plastic bead bracelets labeled Daniel, Evan, and Miles. The journals told a horrifying story. Vernon Hale and Ralph Mason had abducted the boys. The pages detailed strict routines, punishments, and the children's fears. "Evan ran toward the fence today. Vernon slapped him. I told him he hit too hard. He said fear was necessary to keep them loyal." The final entry was chilling. "The youngest is gone. Vernon buried him under the shed. I wanted to leave, but Vernon said if I did, the others would disappear because of me. He said they belong to him now." The next morning, a dig under the shed revealed the remains of a child. DNA confirmed it was Miles. But what had happened to Daniel and Evan? A note in Mason's diary read, "He took them somewhere. Said he had to start over." It mentioned Vernon's Cadillac. That car was found in a barn on Hale's old property. Hidden inside a compartment were the boys' partly burned school ID cards and a photo of them, around 11 years old, at a beach. The shirt logo in the picture led to Howard's Haven of Hope, a youth farm in Texas founded in 1992 by Vernon's former colleague, Howard Fielding. Elaine, Laya, and Nolan went there. In the greenhouse, Elaine confronted Howard. He admitted Vernon had brought him the boys, claiming they were abandoned by their families. Then he led Elaine to a man in his 30s. When he turned around, Elaine's legs gave way. The eyes, the smile, it was Daniel. "Mom," he whispered. He had been told his mother was dead and his father imprisoned. Evan was also at the farm, and when he heard Elaine's voice, he clung to her. "I remember your voice," he murmured. But there was one more shock. With them was a third young man, nearly identical, named Marco. Howard was arrested and confessed. He had changed their names and forged new birth certificates. Daniel had become Ferdinand, Evan Diego. Marco, however, turned out not to be Miles reborn, but another foster child Vernon had once taken in. DNA confirmed Marco, real name Nico, was unrelated to the Coopers. The revelation devastated him, but Elaine embraced him. Daniel and Evan loved you like a brother. That makes you my son, too. A month later, Daniel, Evan, and Nico moved into a house near Rosewood. Elaine visited every Sunday. A new gravestone was placed for Miles at Rosewood Cemetery. Miles Cooper, 1981-1990, our silent light, still shining. In the yard on Broken Elm Street, Elaine planted 3 lilies for Daniel, Evan, and Miles. Then she paused and planted a 4th, for Nico. The 35-year nightmare was finally over. The missing children had been found, the secrets uncovered, and a broken family reunited to heal. Silence no longer meant loss, it meant presence.